Test micro 1, 2, test. Test micro 1, 2.
C'est un peu saturé.
Test.
Un peu saturé.
book. Did you show something like that? It's already shown with the inscription.
LaieqAHMADI, oui.
Yeah.
Ah oui,
Yeah, I know. I was asked to come, but I can't. Yeah, with Alex from the obviously, you to come. But, yeah, you can. Yeah, because I want to take I want to see
Good afternoon, everyone. Shall we start now? So let me introduce you Dr. XuechengSHAO, who is a special researcher at the Shanghai International Studies University and member of the academic committee for the Harvard CamLab Digital Gandhāran project. His work focuses on Central Asia archaeology and art history, especially in the Bactrian and Gandhāran areas. Since 2017, he has worked at the Dunhuang Academy and Tsinghua University, serving as a curator for various exhibitions in Japan, Pakistan, and Afghanistan. Dr. Chao has conducted extensive museum research and archaeological fieldwork about Silk Road countries. So please.
Okay, thank you for your introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy and I'm very pleased to meet everyone here in Strasbourg University. Especially, I'm very happy to meet Professor Talize and Valen. They are working in Birmingham for a long time. You encouraged me. So today, I'm going to talk about some Gandhāran steel relief we found in Afghanistan and how they are linked to those gilding stilted, heavy linking in Chinese Buddhist and temple architecture design. In Chinese temple and grottos caves, you can find a lot of four heaven king, decided in sculpture, mural painting, and even print papers. Scholars have long believed that original from Gandhāran or Indian, but we are not sure when they are introduced into China and which culture of Gandhāran or Indian or Iran or Greek Roman art influenced them. Especially for the northern heavy linking, we call the Kapisa, Beifang Tianwang, Visalavana. It's different about the Kubela image from India. They are closely like Afghanistan pharaoh deity. We don't know for quickly clear for this for a long time. And you can see this map of Afghanistan, Kapisa. I'm focused about it on the material culture of this region sit around Kabul Kapisa, in the south of Hindu Kush Mountain. In the simple terms, we are exploring some changes in artistic forms from 3th century to 5th century, though newly discovered relief from Kapisa. Around about the capital ancient Bigram of the Kushan dynasty, as well as the Buddhist stupa of Toptala, also including Padivi and Sotlak monastery site. They are considered the Gandhāran Buddhist art Kapisa school style. All of these excavations were by the Dafa and the French archaeologists and Afghanistan archaeology in the last century. But for the important archaeology excavation at the Kumzagar monastery in the north of Kabul, it was very interesting. This site was first excavated in the 1917. The artifacts are presently kept in Kabul National Museum. I had visited the museum for several times. Thanks a lot for the director LaieqAHMADI's help. I can do some research for this new research. And we know the Kumzagar monastery has been confirmed as a Buddhist monastery. Some scholars, such as Tissot and Haruko, have written articles suggest its date from 2nd to the 7th century. The sculpture art style are remarked symbol to the Sotlak monastery. The architecture columnary is divided into two periods. The early period, including the hilltop stupa, belong to the early Kushan, and the later period, the monastery at the foot of the hill. However, the layout of the function of the monastery structure remain unclearly. from 2017 to 19, under the director, the Mr. Nori, the Afghanistan National Archaeology Team, they excavated several sculpture, coin, and pottery from this site. Mr. Nori have one important report online meeting conference at the Chicago University at last year. This site attention due to several sculpture panels depicting article images. One particular relief panel, sealed between the two Liang states, stands out for its unique architectural style and the connected reliefs. I will continue to talk about this relief. In the local archaeology history, the nearby Sotalaka Buddhist monastery has similar architectural features. During the exhibition of the monastery by the French Dafa Archaeology Museum, artisans were drawing down niche-shaped building near the Buddhist stupa, filling a pair of Liang sculptures. However, there is no evidence that the state and the platform belong to Buddhism, but they are maybe not Buddhism, and such no definitive evidence has been conducted. The relief or figure declares the Yilan defeated the Pharaoh, who given the wealth. Pharaoh is commonly on the coin inserted during the Kushan Empire. During the Kushan period, Pharaoh was very popular, especially in the Gandhāran region, and was considered from the Kubala and was considered form of Kubala. The Yilan golden Pharaoh often combined with the figure of Articus. And they make a cup over this, toply filled of a sculpture, a money bag, and sculpted the coin, as seen in a small cup figure of the Gandhāran. Totally, though the Pharaoh and Articus figure was like the gilding of the Buddhist stupas, which over them they are around the stupa base. They added this coverly viewable pretext and property of the whole separate sense. This is found in the Takibahi. It's from ASI report. We can show the Pharaoh and Articus, they are the base of this stupa, and they are gilding over the Buddha. And in the Gandhāran region, above the gilding deities were whales, with the most common being the Indian Do, Pajaka, and Hatili. Pajaka is like Kubala's subordinate, because they are a marriage cup and they have some cool story about teaching from the Buddha. You see them depicted in the largest sculpture too. Like they are not just some small figures, they also have bigger sculptures. They also add the gilding of a temple, and sometimes even have their own standalone statue and the temple sculptures. But for this, why these gilding deities are depicted independently? Well, they are often seen at the entrance of the temple, because they are believed to the gilding of the temple. But whether they exactly have their own separate temple or shrines, they are still monastery. And as a Pharaoh, did he have their own building temple or shrines in the Kapisa-Gandha? Well, we don't know. But if we focus about the Swat Valley, it seems like in the archaeology site at the Shinasha Buddhist monastery in Swat. By the University of Peshawar archaeology team, they also found a similar relief panel sculpture. But in the past time, we are thinking they are a king or some werewolves from the Kushan period. From this, it appears that defeated the Pharaoh and Articus, they have a unique center, simple style or composition, often depicted in the naval relief panels. By the connect of Shinasha monastery in Swat with the Kuma-Jagar monastery in the Gandhāran, we can think the change in Gandhāran art after the person Sasanidi conquest this area and concerned the Chinese Indian monk visited Orcos in the 7th century. This Indian point towards the form of a gilding deity vessel. In the previous studies, scholars like the Tanabe Kasumi and LaieqAHMADI suggested that the pharaoh, Kubala, and the northern heavenly king are all interconnected. This indicated the origin of the northern heavenly king in the East Asia Buddhist artifices, and they served as the protector of the temple and gilding of wells. They like inter-China during the 5th century to 6th century, according to the Professor Kurayama's research. During this period, the Buddhist monk and the teacher who come to China is not come from India, it's from Kapisa and the Gandhāran region. Many texts, many stula include these fairing and the northern heavenly king. They were translated during this time into Chinese. The deification of Vaishnavana in China responsible by the Indian, the Vaishnavana in China, it looks like the Yilang deity pharaoh more than India Kubala. According to this suggests there is strongly influence from the Gandhāran region with the okay. And in the 7th century, during the Chinese monk Xuanzang, his journey though from the Bahe to the Kapisa and to the Gandhāran, he mentioned the power and wealth of the mountains, especially their significant role in the economy of temples. At the same time, Xuanzang report and recorded documentary the influence of gilding deities Vaishnavana. Its meaning the northern heavenly king, who protects about the trellis of the temples. He confirmed the Vaishnavana's influence in the Kapisa-Gandha region. Its meaning, in this time, the Xuanzang he recorded about the power of Vaishnavana from the Kapisa to the Gandhāran. And also, we can solve this to this golden and in the Bamiyan mural painting. In the past time, for example, in the West Buddha, we didn't know they belong to Pharaoh or not. At first, Professor Kilamiyaji think it belong to Pharaoh. But at that time, it's no Pharaoh found in Afghanistan. Now we can make sure, although this mural painting was destroyed, but we know this belong to Pharaoh. And the other, we can see the Vaishnavana in the cave G. It's excavated by the Dafa, but it's a pity thing. The grotto was destroyed and the mural painting was disappeared. Now only this painting was kept in Gumi Museum. Absolutely, Kapisa Pharaoh, Vaishnavana quickly being popular in China. Often they are alongside of heavenly kings, but Vaishnavana dressed the Yilang tunic clothes. However, in the 9th century and to the 11th century, due to the political and military reasons, he being too important and was giving new meaning according to the Victoria and Wales. The imaginary and artistic influence over the Vaishnavana spread to the Japan during this time, leading to the development of a new style and interpretations. And now we can find the other example in the Balikot. We see that Balikot is one important ancient city in the Gandhara region in the Swat Valley. We saw in this Balikot city, they have Buddhist temple. They had a Hindu's temple. And they also have some Iran influence. Looks like an altar. It's excavated by the last century by the Italian team. We can find it's the first found in altar in the body court. And also we can find the very unique relief. It's very unique, it's very small. But this relief is very popular in the Chinese grotto, especially in Dunhuang. In the past time, we didn't know this we call the three hairs come from. We think it come from German, come from the other countries, but now we make sure it's by the Iran Sasanian culture influence. And we have every reason to anticipate that in Afghanistan, especially in the region like Kapisa and Kabul, I think we will discover more state of Pharaoh or Kubala or Iran still having the kings, along with the asset of the building, Shines or Plateau. And I think in the future, if the archaeology work will beginning on the Kumzagar, we can find the more about some Iran influence in this monastery. At last, I think this seems because Professor Talide is not here. The Professor Talide, the teacher Daniel Strimberg, in the 1916, he have one he cited the Hellenism Iran art. I think they also belong to that. Okay. At last, I want to say thank you for my Afghanistan friend. At the last year when I visited Afghanistan, it's a special time they give me a lot of help. Thank the Wali, thank the Professor Talide, thank you staff about the staff. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chao, for this interesting presentation about a motif who may have traveled from western part to Kapisas and Gandhāran. Also for the images of deity or king that may be not obviously like I was teach Panchika, but maybe the deity Pharaoh. That's interesting also the work what you say about the Bamiyan painting. So we don't have at Guimet Museum copies of all the paintings, and I don't think that's a draft.
Yes.
Okay, but not oil on canvas.
Because you are creator for this exhibition.
Yeah, that's part of the collection. So we keep this, and that's also interesting because I'm thinking about the reinterpretation made by Franz Grenet about the sun god on the top of the niche,
yes.
which would be also Mitra, and true. There was a Sasanian incursion, many Sasanian incursion from the 3rd century onwards, up to Kabul, up to Kapisa, up to Messeinak, obviously. So that's part of the job you presented. Thank you. Any question to our lecturer? No. So thank you a lot.
Okay, thank you.
So LaieqAHMADI is an archaeologist. He studied at Kabul University, graduating in 2010. He then assumed the role of professor of archaeology at the Bamiyan University. Following 3 years of teaching, he pursued his master's degree at Al-Farabi National University in Kazakhstan. He published his dissertation in 2016, and upon returning to Afghanistan, he resumed his teaching duties at Bamiyan University. LaieqAHMADI is now based in France, next to Paris, and is currently pursuing a PhD at University of Paris, Nanterre. So we'll talk about the Bamiyan art, Bamiyan art and Gandhara's art in Bamiyan, from giganticism to obliteration.
Thank you very much, Monsieur Angers, for your presentation. Thank you very much. I would like to express my gratitude to all of organizers of this colloquium. It's an honor for me to I'm here today and talk with you about Bamiyan. Actually, this subject, it was my thematic work in Bamiyan University because I studied in the field of cultural heritage management in Kazakhstan, and then I was tried to following this subject in Bamiyan University. When I came here in France, I'm changing a little my way in the field of archaeology, and as you see in the presentation also, the logo of University Paris-Nanterre, Ariscan is my laboratory, and also System Pose, which hosted me during the difficulties of the situation in Afghanistan, and finally I arrived here in France. Now I'm working in University of Paris-Nanterre as a post laureate, and I would like to thank for all the organizer of this program also. And I was working in Bamiyan University during the 11 years. I was just teaching to the licence student, bachelor students, and we didn't have some archaeological project to run in the field. We just tried to make communication with the Archaeological Institute of Afghanistan, especially DAFA, and participated and collaborated to the field work with them. By this introduction, I would like to go to the main introduction of my presentation for today. It's well known among the academic community of Afghanistan that Gandhāran is the second shining Buddhist land, and Bamiyan is more impressive than any other famous Buddhist sites in Afghanistan due to its largest Buddhist statue and thousands of renovated carves and stupa. This West treasure in Gandhāran artistic remain has endured many tragic events from its inception until today. This artistic treasure, which once exhibited tolerance towards all artistic style of the East and West, as the speaker was talking already about that, the influence of the civilization, because Bamiyan is a cultural crossroad of East and West, as we enjoyed from the presentation of speaker before me. In addition to the large Buddha statue carved in Bamiyan boasts a unique artistic style within the Gandhāran region, with distinct difference from the famous Buddhist site of Fundukistan, which located
just 132 kilometers east of the Bamyan. Similarly, other parts of Afghanistan associated with Buddhist civilization and Gandhāra art exhibition, diverse art style, the same. Bamyan once the intersection of artistic style from the Eastern and Western civilization has experienced numerous story of cultural pluralism, artistic gigantism, iconoclasm, despotism, and socio-cultural dogmatism throughout the history. The identity of the Gandhāra art in Bamyan varies from the popular folklore of the local people to the archaeological and historiographical documents have been published over the century. Actually, my main objective of this presentation is the narrative of the identification of Buddhas of Bamyan in collective memory of the local community of Afghanistan, and especially particularly in Bamyan. Because when we refer to the literature of Arabic and Persian literature, we see that there is not mentioned as Siddhartha Gautama, Bodhisattva, Buddha, something like that. They just expressing some terms which they saw the Colossi of Bamyan. For example, Surkhbut, it means red idol. For example, Shahmama, for example, Salsal, something like this. I mean, the identification of the Buddhas of Bamyan, it's different in the collective memory of community in Bamyan. My main objective was this, but I would like to mention this presentation is not outcome of a research project. It was just my thematic plan in Bamyan University, which we tried to going ahead for completing this research project as a local researcher in Bamyan, with of course communication of international organization. We had some communication with UNESCO, part of Japan, and also DAFA and other international organizations. My contents of presentation, I would like to more discuss about the identity of Buddhas of Bamyan from archaeological exploration to the local community's narrative. The first and two contents, it's familiar for anyone. As we see around the world, we have some wonders, Colossi wonders statue in some different civilization zone. For example, we have in Egypt and also in Colossus of Rhodes, and also in Bamyan, and also recently discovery by French archaeological mission in Khrusabat, Iraq, which they discovered this one recently, and also in China, Sri Lanka, and another country. Just an overview of the Colossi and the joint sculpture and statue around the world. Maybe there were some connection especially between the Hellenism civilization and Gandhāra art, as before me, Dr. Shah talked about, and also Monsieur Angel mentioned it about the Sasanian symbol in the niche of the Buddhas of Bamyan, and also there is a huge material, especially in numismatic and also in another symbol of Hellenism in Bamyan especially. It seems which around the Gandhāra geography, we find the Colossi of Buddha in Bamyan. It's the biggest statue which exists in the territory of Gandhāra. Maybe between the Bamyan and the Colossi of Rhodes, there were a connection but it will be making research. We find this hypothesis is not clear for me until now. And for this, all of this Colosseum, I think it's familiar for everyone. No need to talk more. Just about the Bamiyan and the Colosseum of Rhodos in Greek. Maybe there were a connection between them in the past time. Gigantism in Gandhāra, or gigantism in the art of Gandhāra, is characterized by its monumental Buddha statue, grand stupa, and the unique Greco-Buddhic artistic synthesis. This element not only reflected the religious and cultural significance of the region, but also highlight its role as a melting pot of the artistic influence of East and West. Cultural synthesis is the bold point, the important point, which we can mention it in the term of gigantism in Gandhāra geography. Cultural synthesis, the gigantism in Gandhāra art exemplified the cultural and artistic synthesis that occurred in this crossroad region, building Greco-Roman, Indian, and Central Asia elements into unique and enduring artistic tradition. And the terms of giant, it's first time mentioned by Alexander Bernays. Buddhas of Bamiyan was popularized by him, British by him in the early 19th century. He referred to them as a giant in his account of his travel in Afghanistan and Central Asia. This terminology joined tracing in the international scientific course, therefore. Bamiyan-based international research standard. I was mentioning my objective of my main objective of in this presentation is talking about the international research standard dimension of Buddhas of Bamiyan identification and the folkloric reading of local community, because there is two identification. One identification which we all we are knowing about in different curriculum and the scientific publication. It's Gandhāra art, which we already talking about that. But another narrative, it's folkloric narrative of the local community. About the international dimension, according to the archaeological exploration and international research standard, colossal Buddha of Bamiyan, which measure 53 meters high, it's the tallest statue in the world. In absolute term, from the 2nd century AD, this fact considerably modified that value of the work, as well as the Bamiyan as an artistic center, as mentioned Pasagil. For folkloric reading of local community, sacred guardian. In Hazara folklore, the Buddha is a sacred guardian, because the panorama of the Buddha between the small Buddha and the big Buddha, the 35 and 53 Buddha, there is a beautiful panorama which covered by different caves. In the memory of local community, it's a sacred guardian. The Bamyan Buddha could be revered as sacred guardian of the land, embodying a spiritual connection to the earth and its pupil. A story may depict the Buddha's benevolent figure who watch over the region, offering protection and guidance to those who honor them. Folkloric reading of the local community. The concept of gigantism, both literal and metaphorical, could have played a significant role in the mythology surrounding the Bamyan Buddha. Their immense stature may have been exaggerated in stories, representing not only their physical size but also their cultural and spiritual significance. They could have been portrayed a guardian or a protector, warding over the landscape and inspiring reversion in those who behind them. Maybe this joint statue making during the history this kind of narrative for the local community of Bamyan during the time, because now also in the identity of the Buddhas of Bamyan for the local people, it's a protector of the city, and it's like a god. Still, they have a very sensible meaning narrative with the Buddha. It's why in front of the Buddhas of Bamyan they built the shrine as yes, you can see here. Before the Buddhas of Bamyan, the 53 meters high Buddha, there is a shrine. The same in Ashdar also, the LaieqAHMADI. Maybe we can compare this narrative with the Gaia in Greek mythology of Gaia, because in Greek also there is a giants. For the Bamyan also there is giants which Salsal tried to kill the dragon, and it's expected by the local people from the Salsal. For the identification of Buddha in Bamyan, in Persian literature, we have some terms which, for me, it was interesting, because in archaeological exploration, you know better, there is Buddha, Bamyan, Kulusi, joint, massive, Bodhisattva, some terms exactly like this. It's frequently in the scientific text and academic text in international level we can find. But in local narrative, we have Salsal and Shahmama, which also in Persian, Butinar and Butimada, female and male, do laver. And in Persian and Arabic also, But, it means idol, and also Surkhbut, King But, it's red idol and grey idol. And also in Arabic literature, Ajaib, it means wonder. Frequently we can find in the literature of Arabic and Persian, but it's not. We cannot find the Buddha and Bodhisattva more in the literature of Persian and Arabic. Chronologically, if we can see here. By the end of millennium of CA, read Idol and King. Idol, it's more, we can find more in the Arabic and Persian literature. And in 13th and 14th century, wonder and ajaib in Arabic and Persian literature is more becoming in this literature. And after that, especially after visiting of Alexander Bornis, joint is use it for the explanation of the Colosseum of Bamiyan. And then with arriving archaeological mission of France in Afghanistan, in the historiography of Afghanistan, national historiography of Afghanistan, and literature, we can find more Colossi and more joint and more terms which was not writing in the past. And also after the destruction of the Buddhas of Bamiyan in 2001, they are reflected in Persian literature very different, because after Republic government, during the Republic government of Afghanistan, in Afghanistan we had a little academic liberté, academic freedom. The poem which they write something about the Buddha, they also used some terms from some new term, not as a term which frequently wrote in Arabic and Persian. We have a little change. And the first, but it's supposed to first researcher who tried to study the local narrative of the pupil and also the archaeological site, and making a comparison between these two things. It was Ria Hakan and Joseph Hakan, with the cooperation of Ahmad Ali Kozat. I know a little French. I tried to review this book. Some of, for example, for the Bamiyan, for the legend of Bamiyan, especially legend of Salsal, legend of Dragoon in Bamiyan, there is something which is still exists between the local people, but it's not reflected in this book. Maybe they just started this kind of work in Afghanistan, and for the historiography of Afghanistan. For this photo, I just want to tell the communication of the local people and the memory of the collective memory of local people is very sensible with the Buddha. They are love the Buddha and they are trying to protect them. There is a lot of sense which show it's a protector of the people in the Bamiyan. There is we cannot find some things iconoclasm between the local people. Even the local people is not Buddhism, but the narrative and the folklore study show which they have a good communication with this archaeological material and this especially with Buddha, with Bodhisattva and other things. In historiography of Afghanistan, which it's important, I asked a question to Professor Tarzi also for the historiography of Afghanistan, because Ahmad Ali Kozat, first of this publishing of this book in Afghanistan, we didn't had national historiography based on the scientific data. Just they wrote the historiography of Afghanistan based on the folklore and narrative of the people of Afghanistan. This three person is valuable for Afghanistan because they were the first researcher which tried to write the national historiography of Afghanistan by the collaboration of the international institute, and especially with DAFA. Ahmad Ali Kozat and Ghulam Muhammadi Ghubar and Mir Muhammad Siddiq Farhang. These three books now frequently referenced by the new researcher and the person who want to make interpretation for the history of Afghanistan. Thank you very much for the dragon and for the salsal. It's two terms which we can compare with the mythology of Gaia in Mediterranean, and also we have giants in Mediterranean, and we have dragon in Bamiyan. Maybe there were a connection between them. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Laieq. Thank you for talking about this fabulous site of Bamiyan. We all miss. I think I'm looking at what I've written down. Yes, there was, of course, connection between the Mediterranean world and Gandhāran, Kapisa, and, of course, Hindu Kush. If you think at the Begram treasure from the 3rd, 2nd century CE, and even before, you always have migration. And the images of the Buddhas sometimes is also interpreted as the monumental Buddhas as maybe influenced by imperial Roman portrait sculptures. So yeah, that's a Roman, that's a British Roman Buddhist. But of course, yes, you have influences, you have exchanges of ideas, of goods. But voilà, between the Colosseus of Rhodos and Buddhas from Bamiyan, you have almost 1 millennium difference chronologically. I think about you're right about Bud. Bud means Buddha and means also idol. I think it's Charles Mason who is the first who recognized these two giants as Buddhas. I think it's before Dafa started working in Afghanistan. And yes, LaieqAHMADI, yes, was heroic figures protective of Bamiyan Valley and Bamiyan population. Voilà, well, just a few things I've written down. I don't know if you want to.
Thank you very much. But I try to make a qualitative survey in Afghanistan from the different provinces of Afghanistan, because the legend of Bamiyan people regarding the Buddha, it's different with the legend of, for example, Ghazni people. And it was interesting for me to ask for the Kandahar and Jalalabad what they are thinking about the Buddhas of Bamiyan. Because when we are participating in international colloquium, there is talking scientifically about one thing. When we refer to the Persian literature, there is another thing. And when we are reading the collective memory of local people, there is another thing. Between the community of Afghanistan also, there is different tendency regarding the Buddhas of Bamiyan. But unfortunately, I'm far from Afghanistan. I tried, but the questionnaire and the surveys complicated for the moment. It's why my presentation is not really completed. The most important part of my presentation was to reflecting the identification of Salsal, Shahmama, Buddha, Bodhisattva in the mind of the pupil, which I unfortunately couldn't success.
And about Bamiyan legends, I think that LaieqAHMADI mentioned somewhere, maybe in the preface, that she collected with Ahmad Ali Kozat, she collected legends from a blind poet.
Exactly.
living in Bamiyan. So I don't know if then she cut a few legends or why she's not talking about.
You know better because there's books in French. They are focused about the legend of Bamiyan and join it this legend with Hazrat Ali Caliphate, fourth Caliphate of Islam, Hazrat Ali. But as I know, as a local pupil, for the local pupil, it's not close. It didn't have close join with Hazrat Ali, because Hazrat Ali is another character, and Salsal is another character. Salsal were the protector of the city, protector of the pupil. And the pupil referred to the Salsal, and he banded the Bandi Amir, making this band for preserving the pupil, and also he killed the dragon, which the dragon is here, just east of Valley of Bamiyan. It's different. And also Hakan and LaieqAHMADI and Joseph Hakan, LaieqAHMADI, sorry, with Ahmad Ali Kozar tried to make a connection with Bamiyan and Kapisa, because the same legend we can find in Kapisa between the pupil. Because there is a shrine in Kapisa also which related to Hazrat Ali, the son of Hazrat Ali. And in Bamiyan we have dragon which mentioned it, LaieqAHMADI, which killed by Hazrat Ali, but it's killed by Salsal in the story of local pupil.
Any question from the audience?
Thank you very much for your talk. I've just a little comment to say. We had some discussions with Professor Tarzi some long time ago, because as of course you mentioned, near Bamiyan there is the Darai Ajdar, the Dragon Valley, and apparently, according to some travelers, the dragon was the geological formation, analogous to the Bandi Amir, but earlier and without water. Water went away. And it is generally considered that this is a natural formation, but it could have been interpreted at various stages by local people as a dragon. But, as you know, Xuanzang, traveling there, mentioned a giant parinirvana. And looking to the distance he mentions, nobody can find the local parinirvana. And we were discussing with Professor Tarzi if this so-called dragon could have been seen at some time earlier as a reclining Buddha and being this giant parinirvana. I don't know what you think.
Yes, this discussion, and as you see in this slide, for the people of Bamiyan, as you see in Tape Ajdar, also we have a shrine, because they believe Hazrat Ali or come here. And also we have a shrine in front of the Buddha. And also in front of the Buddha, it's become a cemetery. It's close to the 53 Buddha of 53, because they believe it's a sacred place. The most influential character of the society should be the burial of most influential person should be here, because there is a sacred guardian for the people. Historically, they are thinking like this. I mean, there were a connection which is not, we cannot tracing the iconoclasm and something like this, opposite. It's normally they had the Buddha have the satisfied character for the pupil. There was not opposite between the pupil and the Buddha. Yes.
Thank you. I will add also that before Mason, when Charles Burns came there, he considered that the sculpture in the cliff, the Buddha, was the figure, the statue of a local chief. You read that probably in
Local chief, it called Salsal, which married with Shah Mama. And the Devini tried to bring them as stone because they stay in long life. Exactly.
Another question to Laik? Arnaud.
Thank you for this presentation. For me, it's very nice to see some photos of Bamiyan, and I'm happy to hear from you this point of view of people of Bamiyan Valley. I remember when we work with them for archaeology, they were all happy to work with us, and I didn't never feel that there are some negative sensibility in front of the Buddha. And in fact, you explain us that it's a part of their life, and it's good to hear that at that time. It's good that people know that at that time the people of Bamiyan Valley, and maybe in other places in Afghanistan, they are not forced to be against their past. And when I see this mausoleum before the cliff, I think myself that it was to keep for another religion the sanctity of the place. And finally, you explain that it's the contrary. It's because they love the place that the place is sanctuary, and not to take some spiritual force to another religious thinking. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment.
Monica.
So thank you very much for your interesting presentation. Only some words, because I found your approach very interesting to manage to put together archaeological data with folklore from people, and in a way to archaeological management and preservation of the memories, and also the scientific point of view, and put it together and to valorize this huge richness about the past, and share with all the community, scholars, and also normal people. That is, I think this is the way. I am a conservator, so it's very important, this kind of approach to the preservation of the past.
Thank you for your comment, but I talked without the data of the folklore because I didn't access to the data from the folklore of the people. So thank you for your comment.
So I think we should leave the floor.
suis désolé, en fait, on a dû faire un PDF comme c'était un document qui note. Et c'est juste au-dessus du zoom. Ça Génial, merci beaucoup. Attends, je...
So let's begin with the presentation of someone I met 20 years ago on the benches of Strasbourg University. Dr. MichaelRAKOTOZONIA also has been a student of Professor Zemayatazi, under whose direction he achieved his PhD. Member of the French Archaeological Mission in Bamiyan, as well as of the International Mission of Messainak, he specialized himself in pre-Islamic civilization of Central Asia and northwestern India, investigating the Indian port of Barigaza as an associated researcher at the History Department of Baroda University, and then director of excavations at Kungu in Mayotte at the western extremity of Indian Ocean, and teacher of civilization at Mayotte University and of history at Nelson Mandela Middle School. He has made his own periplus and developed his expertise in studying cultural exchanges around the Indian Ocean. Currently teaching geopolitics in Western French Guiana, he will join us to deal with the amazing Buddha figure in Berenike and the antique geopolitical chessboard his discovery enlightened. Michael, we listen to you.
Je vous remercie tous pour ma présence ici. Merci beaucoup. The first thing that came out of the ground that day was the Buddhist head. We were very touched. All those years of research materialized in a single discovery only happens once in a lifetime. These are the words of Marina Castro, interviewed by National Geographic, following the successful excavation campaign in the port of Berenice, Egypt, at the end of 2022. Anyone who has worked on an archaeological site and had the privilege of seeing the features of this type of idol appear as they patiently scrutinize the ancient soil at the bottom of the section will understand in their bone the thrill felt by the New York University researcher. The emotion is almost palpable. All the more so because the same takes place far from the Indian world, on the African continent, on the shore of the Red Sea, the discovery of a lifetime of research. Does this mean that Marina Castro expected to unearth such an idol in this very place? That she's been hoping it for a long time, just like me? 11 years earlier, in 2013, at a conference in Gandhāran, Gujarat, where I had come to present my research on the ancient port of Barigaza, I had timidly dared to venture this hypothesis. I was waiting feverishly this Buddha on the east coast of Africa. Because yes, it has materialized the intellectual progress of my last years of research. Its presence in this Egyptian port is not all extravagant. On the contrary, this statue is exactly where it belongs. In this presentation, I shall try to explain how the Buddha of Berenice is the material witness to the one of the first phase of the phenomenon of globalization and illustrate the intense commercial and cultural exchange between the Indian sphere and the rest of the world system from the 1st century onwards. I'll start by explaining the key role played by the port of Berenice in trade between the Western world and India. We will then look at the very special nature of the temple that houses the statue. Finally, we'll look at the idol itself to see how its iconography served an ideology that was crucial to understanding the world of the time and the people who shape it. Berenice, a port bound for Indian and riches. Globalization is a century-old historical process of bringing together society from all over the world, or rather of the world with a capital letter, which has become a commonplace for all humankind. There are many ways to interconnect territories and people. The most effective is undoubtedly to unite them under a single power. Alexander wanted more than anything to embrace the world as the whole. His adventure laid the foundation for the first globalization system, generating vast movement of population and data. Above all, it had the major consequences of linking the Indian world, then on the fringes, to the center of impetus that was the Persian Gulf via a secure established maritime route. This was the mission entrusted to Nearchus in 120 ships in 325 BC. No sooner has Alexander closed his eyes on the world than his dream of unity collapsed. His loyal generals, the Diadochus, inherited parts of it, the borders of which were fixed of the Babylonian Accord. The Indian margins reverted to Seleucus, while the African lands were unified under the tutelage of Ptolemy. There were two dynasties come soon into conflict as they sought to extend their influence. During the first battle between them, the Seleucids had the upper hands thanks to massive use of combat elephants drawn from Indian territories. It was to compensate to the military disadvantage that Ptolemy II Philadelphus created the port of Berenice, named after his mother, on the shore of the Red Sea, at the southern tip of his kingdom, in order to collect elephants from Ethiopia, Eritrea, and Sudan. The pachyderm were loaded into specially designed ships called Elephantagoi at the port of Adulis. Arriving by sea at Berenice, they were then taken across to the desert to Apollonis, Edfu, where they were loaded back into ships that took them to the Nile toward Alexandria. Thus equipped, and now on equal footing on the battlefield, the Laieqides won their first victories over the eastern adversary. Berenice was therefore conceived from the outset as an interface bringing the West what India offered to Orient, and there was already a strong desire to connect the two worlds. Unfortunately, Greek and Egyptian sailors of the time were lacking in maritime knowledge. The traffic sandbanks, capricious winds, and inhospitable stopover dissuaded them attempting the Great Crossing. All the more so as the Seleucid enemy was still influential overseas. However, the geopolitical situation on the Indian margin soon changed. The Seleucid was losing ground to an autonomous Greek colony of Bactria. Demetrios I was in process of establishing himself as a powerful monarch in the region. He was the first to understand the need to open up his kingdom by giving it an access to the ocean. Hence, his conquest to the south in the Saurashtra region around 200 BC, which earned him the honor of displaying the famous elephant skin on these coins, on an attribute reserving only of the conqueror of the subcontinent and until then worn only by Alexander. Establishing a safe port on the coast of western India would enable direct trade with the western world country, so distant and difficult to reach by land route controlled by formidable enemies. The Indo-Greek king Menander follows in the footsteps around 150 BC, aiming for the same goal. Then it was the turn of a certain Lysias, who became ruler of the important Gandhāran metropolis of Taxila, probably spurred on by Gandhāran merchants eager to export their goods to new markets. It was precisely at this time, during the reign of Lysias, that, according to the literature, an Indian pilot, shipwrecked on the Indian coast, came to offer his service as a sailor at the Egyptian court of Ptolemy VIII. Coincidence or strong political act? Seizing this opportunity, the Laieqid ruler then commissioned a certain Eudox of Cyzique, an experienced Greek merchant, to accompany him. The convoy left Berenice in 118 BC. To where precisely? It's a safe bet that Eudoxus of Cyzique landed off the Gulf of Cambay adjacent to Saurashtra in one of the Indian busiest ports even then, Barigaza. Thus was born under the joint impetus of the Greek power on both sides of the ocean, the famous maritime route linking Egypt to India. It was to enjoy increasing success over the history. The details of this maritime route are the subject of the famous Periplus Maris Erythraei, a travelogue written in the 1st century AD by an anonymous Greek merchant from Berenice. He embarked for his Nasi port, which has become the Roman Empire outpost in the Indian Ocean since the Principate of Augustus, and traveled to India on business. His testimony is extremely valuable, as it provides a sort of geopolitical map all over the coast of the Red Sea, India, and East Africa. If you study this work carefully, you will realize that at the time the nerve center of trade was the port of Barigaza on the bank of the Narmada, in what is now the state of Gujarat. In the language of today globalized world, we would call it a commercial hub. The system could not have been more established. Barigaza concentrated in the storage area all the products from the different regions of India, imported by land, river, Narmada, or sea. It was even possible to source products from the East African coast or China. The western ship that set sail from Berenice arrived in July. driven by the summer monsoon and left around January when the wind reversed, to take them back home. In the meantime, as temporary residents, merchants from all over the Roman world enjoyed the pleasure the city had to offer, while shopping and putting together their cargo. In short, Barigaza was the Dubai of antiquity. Getting the ends of Barigaza would be the concern of all the most great kingdom and empire of the northwestern India. Why? Because whoever controlled Barigaza controlled international maritime trade. Dominated during the Periplus era by a vassal of an Indo-Scythian, the satrap Nahapana of XuechengSHAO dynasty, and then briefly captured by the Satavahana, a new conqueror from Bactria later arrived on the coast. This was a certain Shastana of the Karmadaka dynasty, named after the Karmada river in Bactria. Little is known about him, but there is a statue of him in the temple of Mat, near Mathura, associated with those of the great Kushan kings Kanishka and Vinmakatphises. What could such an honor possibly mean? Couldn't we think that Shastana, having become master of a highly strategic area, did it so in the name of the Kushan? Ptolemy, the Greek geographer who traveled in the middle of the 2nd century AD, spoke of a single immense state on the Indian coast, which he called Indo-Scythia, stretching from Patalen in the west to Barigaza in the south, with the city of Ujjain as its capital. However, on the Rabatak inscription discovered in Afghanistan in 1993, Kanishka is presented as the ruler of Ujjain. All these factors suggest that the port of Barigaza was in the end of the Kushan dynasty, at least from Kanishka onwards. This would explain the colossal influx of gold from Egypt that the Kushan princes used of their coins. This would explain above all the presence of objects from the west in the famous Begram treasure, including the only known representation of the Alexandria lighthouse. By securing the coast of the actual Gulf of Cambay, the Kushan became the powerful guarantors of a maritime trade in the Indian sphere. In synergy with the overland Silk Road, the Kushan Empire became a veritable ancient commercial power capable of rivaling Rome in economic terms. Rome, for its part, relied on the port of Berenice to transport what this Asian empire has to offer. If there is one place in the West that was to receive material from Kushan Buddhist India, it was Berenice in Egypt. A sanctuary dedicated to international trade. This statue of Buddha at the center of a study was discovered in 2 separate excavations. The body in 2018 and the head and nimbus in 2022. All 3 parts were unearthed in the forecourt of the Great Temple of Berenice. The body was extracted from section BE18, running parallel to the north wall of the forecourt. The head and nimbus come from section BE22, 150. This is exactly the same excavated area, only the references has changed from one campaign to the next. The sculpture, originally probably leaning against the north wall of the courtyard, must have fallen from its pedestal and broken off. The head lies just down on the ground, the nimbus fragmented in 4 pieces, just a little further south, reflecting the forward movement of the fall. Si on voit bien, it just falls from the pedestal. It should be noted that the head and nimbus were directly adjacent to a stele bearing an inscription in Brahmi from the 3rd century. Here you can see how they found it. It's with the inscription. What would a statue of Buddha be doing in a temple dedicated to Isis? First of all, it should be noted that the Great Temple was built and consecrated by Ptolemy VIII, the same king who wanted to open up the sea route to India by commissioning Eudoxus of Cyzicus. The fact that it is dedicated to Isis is not a coincidence. From Alexandrian merchants, Isis and Serapis were associated with prosperity. It was this glorious duo that Ptolemy VIII dedicated to the temple of Berenice on the shore of the Red Sea in order to help the port, which was devoted to trade with India, to achieve its long-awaited success, and so that the city seller and merchant could obtain satisfaction in their endeavors through their prayers. By the 1st century BC, Isis has become the flagship symbol of the Ptolemaic hegemony and was now worshipped as the goddess of luck, the sea, and travel. When she passed into the Roman world, she was worshipped by sailors. A festival held every year in spring, was associated with her and became famous throughout the empire, the Navigium Isidis. City dependent on the maritime trade turned to Isis to defend against the whip of Neptune. Berenice was obviously not immune to this tradition. The sanctuary was most active in the early Roman period, in the 1st and 2nd century AD, and continued to function until the 4th century. After this, it was abandoned before being reused as the dwelling place by the new Blemi population until the 6th century. To the south of the entrance, the wall excavation enhanced an inscription stating that the monument had been dedicated to the goddess Isis at the instigation of a certain Irenaios, Greek secretary of the city tax collector, in the ninth year of the reign of Emperor Claudius, 49 AD. In the forecourt on the north side, another similar inscription was enacted dated of the 18th century of Trajan reign, 112 AD. It indicated that the monument had been commissioned by Gaius Iulius Eucharistos, secretary of the spices shop, in honor of Gaius Iulius Faustinus, collector of Berenice. In the light of this clues, the team of Berenice project, jointly led since 1994 by the American University of Delaware and the Polish Center of Mediterranean Archaeology, under the joint direction of Steven Sidebottom and Ivona Zich, concluded that the monument itself must have some connection with the port commercial institution. The discovery of a huge quantity of paper, preserved in a large Indian jars, buried in the 1st century AD and stored in the court directly to the north of the Great Temple and excavated in 1999, has confirmed this hypothesis. One of these jars contained no less than 7.5 kilograms of the precious spice, the largest quantity ever found in the Roman Empire. Steven Sidebottom said itself, "If we accept that this area was part of the sacred complex, we can deduce that the temple was used as a safe place to store valuable commercial goods, and or that the sanctuary itself was a player in international trade at the time." Thus, far from being a traditional sanctuary, the Great Temple of Berenice, with its annex, could be seen as a trading post responsible for receiving valuable goods, storing them, fixing the amount of tax to be levied, organizing their transport by caravan across the desert to the Nile, or their departure of the coast. It was therefore in the vicinity, or even within it, that the import-export administrative procedure and financial transactions relating to freight were carried out. It is clear that the commercial complex was not only frequented by Western merchants, but also had to accommodate merchants from overseas. And if the port specialty was trading with India, its platform had to accommodate with part-time resident population, because the navigational system, which was subject to the rhythm of the monsoon, inevitably meant that these foreign sailors and merchants had to spend part of the year in Berenice. This explained the presence of a Buddha statue here. In March 2023, at Delhi's India International Center, Osman Bobarachi gave a brilliant lecture in which he emphasized the crucial role played by merchant navigators in the spread of Buddhism. He explained that Buddhism promoted itself as a promoter of trade. Buddhist community was systematically established along trade routes, linking important political and economical centers. He added that Buddhists invited wealthy merchants to make donations to them, and merchants tended to finance the construction of votive monuments, thus spreading the faith wherever they traveled. And so, a symbiotic relationship between Buddhism and merchant was born. It is important to remember that in Pali and Sanskrit literature, the Buddha is often referred to as Mahasartavara, great caravan leader, a way of saying that the guides that he guides is devoted as they pass from the material world of perpetual reincarnation to the other shore where enlightenment resides and existence ceases. The comparison is clearly not insignificant, and Shinru Ryu observes that the many experiences of long-distance trade inspire image of a Buddha guiding travelers and merchants. The Kushan understood this well, as they favored this religion and even embraced it, just when it was possible to use it for political and economic ends. From this came the gold cone associated Buddhas and the Kushan Emperor Kanishka. Above all, it gave rise to the famous idol in the Buddha Majesty, reminiscence of imperial statuary. One of these is informed in the forecourt of the Great Temple of Berenice. A Mahasartavara Buddha, protector of the traveler, leader of caravan, patron of South Indian merchants, and worthy allegory of Kushan imperial power. This idol could only find its place in a temple dedicated to international trade. Now it's time to concentrate on the sculpture itself. At first glance, we are tempted to think that this is a typical Gandhāran statue from the classical Kushan period, which will place chronologically in the 2nd century or the beginning of the 3rd century AD. In this case, this work would have traveled by boat to Berenice from the main Indian hub of Barigaza, or perhaps from Bir Barikon at the mouth of the Indus, geographically closer to the stylistic Diffin era. However, a number of details force us to consider other avenues. First and foremost, the material of the sculpture itself, white marble of average quality. At the moment, we know no other similar work carved in this material belonging to the Indian sphere, at least not at this time. The examples that we have found from eastern Afghanistan are of a later date and also have Hindu iconography. In 2021, at the Galerie Zacke in Vienna, in Austria, a small white marble Ariti statuette from a private French collection was sold at auction. The expert dated it from the Kushan period and labeled it as coming from Mathura. On what criteria can we give credence to this artifact and use it as a basis for a kind of reasoning? The possibility of the work imported directly from India is not impossible, but at this stage of our knowledge, it seems unlikely. Stephen Sidebottom suggests that the marl came from famous imperial quarries at Prokonnesos, an island in the Sea of Marmara not far from Istanbul, which supplied the entire Roman world from the 1st century AD onwards. According to the American professor, the Buddha of Berenike were carved on the spot within the very wall of the Red Sea port to be incorporated as a votive idol in the Great Temple. But to whom do we owe this achievement? Was it a craftsman from Gandhara or northwestern India who traveled by boat to Egypt, bringing with him all his know-how and who worked in situ on the block of marble imported from Prokonnesos for the occasion? Or is it the work of a local craftsman under the order of a patron of Buddhist faith? Is this, in this case, the latter must have been provided with a reference model, which must have traveled by sea in any case, unless the sculptor was working from a very detailed drawing supplied by the patron or patrons. There are many scenarios possible. What we need to bear in mind is that the statue that is the subject of the article is not the only Buddhist representation to be found in Berenice. There is every reason to believe that a modest local workshop was responsible for producing small, inexpensive idols for the faithful who frequented the site, whether they were worshippers of Isis, Buddha, or other divinities. That's the beauty of the Roman world and its eclecticism. It is doubtful, however, that the small local workshop could have tackled such a marble creation. Then the nimbus come into play, with this distinctive appearance and vital importance. The great originality of Berenice Buddha is that he has a radiant nimbus. This type of nimbus is fairly common in Palmyra. It appears almost identically on the famous funeral relief of Maliku, here. Now in the Louvre, in fact, it can be found framing the head of many figures in Palmyrean funerary relief from the 2nd century AD, always associated with the solar and lunar stars. The link between Palmyra and Berenice is well established. We know from inscriptions on ostraca found during archaeological excavation that a large part of the transshipment of goods from the port or to the Nile via the desert was carried out by camels caravan run by Palmyrenians. A special temple was reserved for them within the city, just here. The shorter skirt will be to think that the sculptor was a renowned craftsman working for one of the highly reputed workshops in charge of funerary statuary in Palmyra, and that he was specially brought to Berenice to create the Buddhas. Prokonnesos marble was even sent directly to Palmyra with a model to be copied and designed there before being brought back to Berenice. A veritable marble school was in operation over there at the time. With or without the consent of the patrons, the sculptor took the liberty of rendering the statue with a radiant nimbus, making Buddha de facto the glorious star, the source of all of light. This version of the story is not impossible, but in my opinion, there is a deeper explanation for the presence of his very special nimbus. If it seems to be confined to the enlightenment of the astral nature, From the figure that wears it, already at Palmyra, we sense a hidden meaning, or rather an assimilation to a divinity gradually passing from the shadow into the light, an entity containing all the mystery. We are talking about Mitra. It is thought that it was introduced to the West during the 1st century AD by soldiers who held the eastern fringes of the empire or through the merchants acting as intermediaries. In any case, Mitra was swept through the Roman world and take on the considerable importance, particularly among the elite. Wherever he went, he presented himself with the characteristic radiant nimbus. Its followers were bound together by induction, initiation, sacrifice, and mystery. The result is an extremely close-knit community, intimately bound together by a form of mutual clientelism. Because of this, Mitra is seen as the god of contracts. He seals agreements, secures investments, and guarantees everyone's words. He ensures that famous trust, the key of all the transactions and the driving force behind economic growth. Adhering to his cult and practicing mastery means becoming part of a dominant network. It means being admitted to a fraternity that brings together its members across border and sea. Today, we will speak of an international consortium. It has to be said that the Kushan Emperor Kanishka himself must have been part of his network, since he made his name on the reverse of some of these coins. This state within states became the influential that the Roman empires during the 3rd century we almost fought to assimilate themselves to Mitra to the point of becoming Sol Invictus, the unconquered sun, in order to avoid any excess. In the Berenice sanctuary, then, the choice of crowning the Buddha idol with a radiant nimbus has a highly symbolic value. There are a real desire on the part of those who commissioned the work to convey a clear message that the Buddha was himself the emanation of Mitra and that his devotee in this place would adhere to the mystery. Claiming to be members of the Brotherhood, they became trustworthy and they were to be seen as intimately linked to their Western partners. All the more, so the goddess Isis, whose cult was itself at the time subject to the mystery. Did they share the same rites together within this enclosure to strengthen ties and seal agreements? Can we envisage a religious syncretism specific to the guild of the merchant? To conclude this analysis, we still have one detail to clarify, the treatment of the hair on the Berenice of Buddha. If the sculptor had been asked to reproduce a classic piece of the Gandhāran art from the Kushan period, he would certainly have cut a beautiful head of hair on the lips and forehead, this way. The hair is wavy, coming together in the top of the head in the voluminous Ushnisha. But this is not the case. The hair here is informally curled, repeating the pattern of the ring with a hole in it. We could certainly find a hair motif in Gandhāra that is close to this style, except that it would belong to a later school, and in reality, we would be dealing more with the snail curl. We might also think that the sculptor who belonging to the Palmyran school took the liberty of endowing the head of the Buddha with the famous skull that were in the vogue in the 2nd century AD on figures from the funerary iconography of Syrian city, except that the motif used at Palmyra is more accomplished, more refined, and here again closer to the snail loop. No, if we really want to get closer to the motif seen on the work, we need to look to India, to Mathura. And there, according to the specialists, the series showing this particularity must be dated between 178 and 239. One thing is striking. It was that this type of simplified hair that was subsequently adopted in Gupta art in India and exported to almost all the new Buddhist colonies founded in Southeast Asia. In other words, in all the area frequented by Indian merchant navigators. It's as if the latter traveled with a standard idol that they asked to be reproduced ad infinitum wherever they landed. Let's say then that the Buddha of Berenice is the Western version of the standard idol, perhaps originating in Mathura, that India traded distributing of their peregrination to the 4th corner of the Indian Ocean. And let's say the conclusion, I'm sorry for that. Berenice on the shore of the Red Sea in Egypt is currently the westernmost known site to contain Indian language inscription. The coins found during the excavation bear witness to the intense commercial exchange between this port and Barigaza, the main hub of the Indian Ocean during antiquity. The Buddha of Berenice, located within the port's sacred complex, is proof that the community of Indian merchants was intimately involved in the city economic and political affairs. What we have here is a globalized system, crisscrossed by flow of people, goods, credits, and data. They are metropolized driving global movement, Rome, Alexandria, Begram, Mathura, and interface enabling contact, Berenice and Barigaza. Given the lust for Indian goods among the elites of the Roman world, the Indian world thirst of gold, the proselytism of merchants loyal to the Mahayana doctrine, and Egypt as a pivotal, open country, geographical at the crossroad of continent, it was almost natural to find a statue of Buddha in one of these ports, Berenice. The gateway to the Eritrean Sea was just the place for discovery. The diggers of the American Polish team was anticipated, as did I. The presence of Ovishka coin in Inyanga, Zimbabwe, even led me to think that ancient Indian merchants have ventured far beyond the so-called traditional circuit. They had been trading in the port on the east coast of Africa, probably in search of gold. Hence my peregrination between 2014 and 2020 in the area in search of convincing clues. The archaeological evidence I found shows that they were definitely present through the medieval period. In fact, they left a clear imprint in their civilization on all these territories. But for the moment, there is no trace of anything resembling Gandhāran culture in East Africa. However, we should bear in mind that the two most powerful warriors are patience and time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael, for your work, which could find clearly a resonance in today's geopolitics. This is an illustration of reasoning possibilities contained behind one artifact, a testimony led by artists and artisans that archaeology exhumes through a lot of sources. You place Buddha statue in more larger context, geographically and spiritually. I think your presentation makes me think to the one of XuechengSHAO and LaieqAHMADI before, in the way our Gandhāran art can be placed in very different axes concerning religious thinking. I was even think when Isis protecting the pharaohs and a pharaoh from Iran evocated by XuechengSHAO, and the way people look at those statues in all time and actually is not exactly the one we got as a specialist. So it's very interesting to open our mind. Has somebody any question or comment about Michael's intervention?
Yeah, just very briefly, no questions, just to make few comments about it, about the cult of Isis. I mean, if you look at Pompeii, which was destroyed in the 1st century, there is a temple in the name of Isis, who was the protector. The other important comment is that, as you correctly said, by the time of Ptolemy, the geographer, Indian Ocean was the only ocean known to the Greeks and Romans. So the globalization we are talking about is a limited globalization. The other interesting thing is, if you look at the maritime trade networks, I published most of the inscriptions found in Sri Lanka referring to the mariners going to Barukacha and also Barigasa and those ports. So this was a well-established network. I mean, by the time of Strabo, so many ships were coming to India, and from India they were going back with pepper. So it's quite interesting. So these things were known, and other thing is, especially the inscription published by XuechengSHAO in Socotras, and they are giving the names of mariners, right? I mean, it's very difficult to develop all these things in a small paper. But the Ingos, I wrote a review about this book. It's very interesting because these are all Buddhist mariners coming from Gujarat and other places. They are coming from all over India. So that's interesting. So coming back to the statue, I asked Said Botham to get the stone analyzed. It's very important to get the stone, whether it was imported from the limestone like Shai period, or it is from local. So once we get it, that's fine if it was made locally or it was imported. Even importing 2 tons of statue, it was not a problem. I mean, in Sri Lanka, you find statues which weigh about 3 tons came from Amaravati and Nagarjunakonda. So that's like. So the last point I want to make is recently I wrote this book about Helios and Surya, especially referring to this halo with the rays of the sun. You have the prototype in the Metropolitan Museum, which is a bronze statue which I republished, which was published by Kurt Berendt, who didn't understand the significance of it. So again, we come back to the question of Bamiyan, what Franz Goni interpreted as Mitra, which is correct, but it is not Mitra who is there, it is Buddha who is there. So this is the form. I mean, I can't summarize everything I wrote. So it's the Buddha as the Helios, as the sun god, who is making to depart the darkness and illuminate the world. So in that context, when everyone got excited when they found the statue, I was not excited. It is, even if you find the statue in Rome, I won't be excited, because this was the period maritime trade was very active. The Buddhist traders were everywhere because Brahmins didn't go, Indians didn't go. So trade was controlled by Jains and the Buddhists. So this discovery is wonderful. Thank you very much. It's very short.
To me, it was just a testimony of the globalization, and it was almost sure that we can find something like this in Berenice. It was exactly this.
Yes.
Thank you very much. So thank you very much. I've been much interested by your communication. I have two. I'm not specialist of these questions, of course, but I have 2 small remarks. One about the long-distance trade of art objects and stones. There is one almost unknown Gandhāran relief which was found in Susa. It is in Tehran Museum and it has not been published. I saw it in 1971, long time ago. Was very surprised. And the restorer who was there was surprised when I said her that it is a fragment of Gandhāran relief. Secondly, about the curls, the hair. I was thinking of the hair also like you. And the comparison with the Mathurandi statues is perhaps to be completed by some technical things that drill was used for this. And the drill is a typical use of the Roman Empire after the 3rd century. Exactly. Not with the curlings in India, the Gupta curlings. So that's just a small.
I think because I saw that in Palmyre, it was in the 1st century all the time. And the side bottom, he said that the sculpture is maybe from the end of the 2nd century, and he said we don't have to link it with the Brahmi inscription. And to me, because of the air, maybe we can say that it was the 3rd century, maybe later.
Right, yes.
But after that,
and
in
the
the 4th century,
is very important. The drilling, the trépant.
It was. I think this was just the occasion to see that.
Osmund?
Yeah, just one thing about the Brahmi inscription. It was deciphered by Shalendra Bhandari, who is not an epigraphist. Now his reading is contested by Sushmita Basu Majumdar from the Kolkata University. I can't tell you the contents because it will be, it will be known on the 11th of June in this conference in this place. Okay. So it gives a new data, a new data as well. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Let's have a coffee break.
Can I just ask everyone if it's possible to be in front of the stage just for one picture with all the speakers, because everyone will leave after very quickly. If we can just do that.
It's picture time.
I think it would be great, and if we can just put the Gandhāran.
Faut mettre le truc, ça s'appelle. C'est qu'il est. Alors là, du coup, je sais. Ah non, c'est.
Maybe
C'est vrai.
Okay. Cheese.
Okay, cheese.
I think it's
So, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Il est déjà dessus. Ah d'accord, le disque dur portable, il a plus qu'à le brancher. Sortir de là.
Ah bah ça c'est le verre.
Ça fonctionne. Ça tourne.
Je laisse comme ça.
Bah ouais, c'est prêt à décoller, super.